Hi, everyone, and welcome to Brian's Horror Corner. I'm your host, Brian, and welcome to this movie review as part of my February series of taking a look at the entire Scream franchise and reviewing all the movies and then having a ranking at the end of the month. So today we're going to take a look at the second movie in the franchise as part of this Blu-ray three movie collection here. That's Scream 2 from 1997. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get into it with the setup and the premise, and then we'll get into my thoughts and review. So Scream 2 is a 1997 American slasher film directed by Wes Craven and written by Kevin Williamson. The film was released on December 12th, 1997, less than a year after the first by Dimension Films as the second installment in the Scream film series. It was followed by three sequels. Scream 2 takes place 2 years after the first film and again follows the character of Sidney Prescott and other survivors of the Woodsboro Massacre at the fictional Windsor College in Ohio, where they are targeted by a copycat killer using the guise of Ghostface. So basically, the movie opens Windsor College seniors Maureen Evans and Phil Stevens attend a sneak preview of Stab, which is a film based on the events of the Woodsboro murders. There, Phil is killed by Ghostface. Ghostface proceeds to sit beside Maureen and fatally stab her, while the audience mistakes for a publicity stunt until Maureen falls dead. The news media, including local journalist Debbie Salt, descends on Windsor College, where Sidney Prescott studies alongside her best friend Haley McDaniel, her new boyfriend Derek Feldman, fellow Woodsboro survivor Randy Meeks, and Derek's best friend Mickey Altieri. Two other Woodsboro survivors arrive, police officer Dewey Riley and to offer Sidney protection, and reporter Gail Weathers to cover the case. Gail unsuccessfully tries to stage a confrontation between Sidney and Cotton Weary, who is attempting to gain fame from his exoneration for the murder of Sidney's mother, Maureen Prescott. So that's basically the setup and the premise of Scream 2. Cast wise, we have David Arquette as Dewey Riley, Nev Campbell as Sidney Prescott, Courtney Cox as Gail Weathers, Sarah Michelle Gellar as Cece Cooper, Jamie Kennedy as Randy Meeks, Laurie Metcalf as Mrs. Loomis, Elise Neal as Haley McDaniel, Jerry O'Connell as Derek Feldman, Timothy Oliphant as Mickey Altieri, Jada Pinkett as Maureen Evans, Jada Pinkett Smith now, and Liv Schreiber as Cotton Weary. So yeah, first thing I wasn't aware that this movie came out so closely after the first one. For some reason, I thought it was 96, 98, 2000. That they were over 2 years apart. But I was kind of surprised when I read that it was less than a year after the first Scream movie came out, because typically that doesn't go very well for sequels. Just take a look at the Halloween franchise from Halloween 4 to Halloween 5 when they try to rush out a sequel. But anyway, getting into the review for this movie, Scream 2. This is a very solid sequel, honestly. It uses a lot of the same beats and a lot of the same flow and style as the original movie, while still being fresh and new enough, putting some different elements into this movie so that it isn't just a tired rehash. Both in terms of focusing on a sequel instead of sort of making fun of just a horror movie. Now they sort of make fun of the sequel of a horror movie in this movie, because this movie is a sequel, obviously, as well as the sequel meta-ness that's involved in that. Also, the Stab movie, which is obviously a parody of actual events that happened in the first Scream movie. Very meta in that regard. So definitely adds some fresh ideas to enhance the movie. These are pros, of course, if I didn't mention that before. Another big pro, just like the first one, you got to talk about the characters, led by Sidney Prescott, who I think really kills it in this movie. I think Nev Campbell's even better in this movie than she was in the first one, and she was good in the first one. But she really ups her game in this movie and takes her performance as Sidney to the next level, in my opinion. I also think Dewey and Gale also have some nice character arcs in the sequel, Scream 2, returning in this movie. I also really enjoy the new characters in this movie. I think they do a pretty good job of sort of. I'm not going to say they're all as great as the characters in the first one, but they do a really good job of sort of filling the shoes of the characters that obviously aren't there from the original. Namely, namely Cotton Weary. I think he steals the show as far as the new characters go. Played excellently by Liv Schreiber, who I've been a big fan of as an actor to begin with. Um, he just does a really good job with that character. We're still not really quite sure. He really plays it. He really plays it on both sides of the fence, if you will, in terms of being a good guy or a bad guy, or is he genuine or isn't he? So it just really kept me in tune the whole movie. Um, I also think that wait a minute, Timothy, Timothy Oliphant as Mickey's really good in this movie too. I think he does a good job of playing that character, sort of the dual character, if you will. Um, Also, you got to talk about the opening of this movie, and while I'm not going to compare it to the original Scream, it isn't anywhere near on that level in terms of a great opening to the movie. I did really enjoy it. Like I said, it's not as groundbreaking or as original as the first movie, but it was still really clever and really entertaining. And I enjoyed Jada Pinkett and who is the gentleman? Shoot, I didn't write his name down. He's a pretty well-known actor, though. Who plays Phil Stevens, but unfortunately, I don't have him as part of the cast. Oh, it's going to bug me, but you all know who I'm talking about, I'm sure. So, but they do a really good job, and like I said, the opening sequence is it's really interesting with the whole movie theater aspect. I'm not sure everything with it works, and I'll get into that with my cons, but it's still really entertaining and really enjoyable way to start this movie. Omar Epps, that's who it is. I did write it down. It's good to see Omar Epps and Jada Pinkett Smith at the beginning of this movie. They both do a really good job. I'm glad I wrote them down. I figured I did. But yeah, that whole scene's just really interesting, but it does have its problems. I enjoyed the new setting of the movie. One of the things they changed is they took it out of Woodsboro and put it in this college campus, which of course adds a whole new set of sort of interesting dynamics and storylines because you're dealing with the sororities and frats and things like that when you're talking about a college campus. Different locations, the theater location on campus is obviously a big one in this movie, but it makes it really believable and it helps make the movie fresh, as I mentioned before. Um, I will say, in some ways, the reveal of the killer slash killers in this movie is almost done better in terms of not seeing it coming than even the original movie where I did kind of see it coming. It wasn't a total shock. In this movie, it is a little bit more of a surprise. Although that's a two-sided coin there, which I'm going to get into in my cons as well. But just in terms of who they present as the killer in this movie, it really did. I really didn't see it coming. It's not as predictable, I don't think, as perhaps it was for some people in the first movie. I think yeah, they do a better job of throwing the viewer off. I like some of the sequel meta-ness and talk right up until the end as well, with especially the last part where Sydney does the whole just making sure part. I really enjoyed that. I got a good laugh out of it, and very meta sequel there. I really enjoyed that part. Just at the very end of the film, if you've seen the movie, you know what I mean when I say just making sure scene. And then I also have to give the movie a lot of props. I know people don't like the fact that they killed the main character of Jamie Kennedy, who plays Randy Meeks, off, but I give him a lot of props for that, even though I really enjoy his character, obviously, the character of Randy. But to me, the best sequel, or the best horror franchises, I should say, are the ones that aren't afraid to kill off a major character and really up the stakes for a movie upcoming or even the rest of this movie, depending on when those characters die. So yeah, I give the studio, I give the director and the writer a lot of props for doing that. Obviously, it got a lot of backlash because Jamie Kennedy was one of the favorite performers in these movies, and Randy was one of the great characters in the Scream movies. But I have to mention that. So those are my pros, the big pros in this movie. Getting on to the cons, once again, like the first movie, the kills aren't anything elaborate or special. It's basically a lot of stabbing, and then Like in the first one, you had the garage door kill, which didn't completely work. In this movie, one of the kills is they throw a character off a balcony, basically. So they kind of have one other thing besides the general stabbing that takes place. So, but it's mostly done in the same way as the original: stab, stab, stab. There's also some plot contrivances and conveniences in this movie. I would argue even a few more than the first movie had. Um, Kind of like the bathroom scene in the first movie. In this movie, the movie theater scene that I mentioned before. Well, I thought it was entertaining and interesting, and I enjoyed the actor and actress in it. Um, I'm not sure that I can entirely buy it. How Omar Epps dies in the movie theater bathroom, where he hears whispering and he puts his head up to the side of the stall and happens to get stabbed right in the side of his head. I mean, really? It's just, I mean, you really got to just go with it, I guess. And yeah, that was a little hard to swallow. The police car scene as well. Well, I do enjoy that scene. It has good suspense. I don't think it's aged quite as well as when it was first done when this movie first came out. So yeah, there's just some plot conveniences and contrivances there that you kind of just have to swallow, even if it's a bitter pill. The third, well, I mentioned that the third act, killers revealed, I think might have actually been a little bit better than the first movie, just in terms of how it wasn't as predictable as the first movie. That's about the end of the good stuff though with that. I think the third act chase confrontation isn't quite as suspenseful or as well done as it was in the first movie. And part of that has to do with these two characters that end up being the killers in this movie, which, of course, I'm not going to tell you who they are. If you've seen the movie, you know. Otherwise, I don't want to spoil it for those of you that have been sitting on this movie for 25 years. It does feel a little bit more forced. So even though they got more of the surprise, or I didn't see that coming from the audience, part of that is a double-edged sword because it's kind of like there's no chemistry between these two characters. It's basically the first time you see them in the movie together, and I think that really hinders the third act in this movie more than it could have. Certainly more than the first movie's third act. Um, I also don't think the killer's motivations seem quite as believable or easy to understand. Somewhat lazy in the writing, I think, a little bit towards the end there. I feel like it's a pretty drastic change in performances by the killer. Where in the first movie, the killers, um, they didn't really change their performance that much. They were kind of the same at the end as they were throughout the movie when you saw them. Maybe a little bit more over the top, but not to the degree that it was in this movie with the killers at the end. Um, it just didn't work for me in the same way, that part. But and then also I have to mention I don't think the score, the music, and the humor work quite as well, or they're not quite as strong for me in this movie. That's not to say they're bad. They're still there. I still got a few chuckles and there were a few musical cues that I enjoy, but it's just not to the level of the original Scream movie. But all that being said, guys, Scream 2 is a fantastic sequel, one of the best direct sequels to any original horror movie, in my opinion, right up there with Psycho 2, Halloween 2, Friday the 13th Part 2, which actually is better in my opinion, but that's a different video. And other, but yeah, it's right there. It's just a great sequel. Very entertaining, very fun, well written characters once again, like the first movie. Like I said, they don't change much with the killing or the stabbing. It's all kind of the same. I thought, some people mentioned that this movie's a lot gorier than the first one. I thought it was about the same. I didn't see that. I don't think it was less gory, but I don't think it was more gory either. But like I said, that third act just didn't work quite as well for me. But that being said, still enjoyed the opening enough. Still enjoyed the character arcs in this movie, especially the survivor of Woodsboro. Sidney Prescott kicked ass in this movie. She was a really even stronger final girl. So yeah, this is a fantastic follow up to the first Scream. I'm gonna give Scream 2 from 1997 an 8.5 out of 10. So only half a point less than the first one that I gave 9 out of 10. 8.5 out of 10. Really good Scream movie. Check out Scream 2 if you haven't seen it and you really enjoy the original. I don't think you'll be disappointed with the subtle and few changes they made while still keeping the pace and the taste of the original Scream movie, if you will. So yeah, 8.5 out of 10. Comment down below, guys. Tell me what you thought of Scream 2. Um, Please like this video and hit the little notification bell below so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews on this franchise. And please subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my great horror content, not just the rest of this series, but what I have coming up over the next 3 or 4 months, I'm already planned out through July. So, type A personality here. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Everybody, stay scared. Bye.